Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Shiny Gold Tales video for you guys. And this one's titled 3 True Scary Target Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the back, shall we? Alrighty, here we go.
I'm a cashier at Target, and I used to work the night shift. This particular location was open until midnight, and I was the only cashier on duty since there were not many customers at this hour.
Okay.
There was a whole crew restocking shelves at the time, but they were spread throughout the vast expanse of aisles that made up the large store. I was very much alone at the front of the store for the late hours of the night.
You know, this is the first time I ever heard of a Target store being open until midnight. I thought they usually close around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And Walmart was the one that closes at midnight most of the time. Very interesting.
Customers would trickle in throughout the evening, but I would spend most of my time reading a newspaper or fantasizing about quitting this job and backpacking around the world. Free from these walls and the noisy crowds of people that flocked to this place during the beginning parts of my shift. My eyes were glued to the newspaper when I noticed a customer standing in front of me. I don't even know how long he was standing there before I noticed him. He was a young man, probably 19 or 20 years old, with ripped jeans and a dirty t-shirt. His hair was unkempt and his eyes bloodshot. I looked at him with a bored expression on my face. I usually don't even greet the customers anymore. I'm a cashier. They know what to do. He placed a can of soda on the counter and looked down. I scanned it and said, "That's 89 cents, please." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wrinkled $1 bill. His whole body was trembling as he handed it to me. He refused to make eye contact. This man was nervous. I handed him his change and he left the store. However, I could see through the window that he was standing in front of the entrance, pacing back and forth. Something was bothering this young man. It was none of my business, though, so I went back to reading the bland articles in one of those free newspapers that you can find at the bus stop. A few minutes went by, and I noticed the man had come back into the store. He was standing 10 or 15 feet away from my till and looking at me, his body still trembling. The look on his face suggested he was about to cry.
Man, I feel sorry for this person because he might be having a nervous breakdown. He probably got fired and he's just upset, like, what is he going to do now? Or somebody in his family died. You just don't know what's happening. He's just nervous as thinking about robbing the store. So let's just continue on with the story and see the next events unfold here, shall we?
"Can I help you, sir?" I asked. He began to walk slowly towards me, his eyes tearing up. As he got closer, his right hand wandered behind his back as if he were grabbing his wallet from one of the back pockets of his pants. Just then, he stopped, then quickly turned around and walked back the way he came. As he made his way out of the store, I noticed that there was a gun in the waistband around his lower back. That must have been what he was reaching for. After reflecting on the night's events and the young man's behavior, I believe that he was planning to rob the store and that he changed his mind at the last minute. I can only imagine the desperation one might feel to consider an armed robbery that would have only been for a few $100s. My register never has more than $300 in cash. Honestly, he would have been better off smashing a display case and running off with a few Xboxes. Not that I'm recommending that, it just shows how clear his thinking was. That being said, it was probably the scariest night of my life, and I'm glad that he made the right choice.
I was wrong about the other theories, but I was right about him probably planning on robbing the place. But luckily he changed his mind like this person said and did not pull that gun out, because if he did, with his nervous tensions like this other person was describing, he probably would have accidentally fired the gun and hit one of the employees. And plus, if it's only got like $300 in each cash register, I mean, that's hardly nothing. Luckily, he made the right choice and got out of there when he did, because he realized that it ain't worth the trouble getting the cops involved and getting him arrested, you know. Anyway, let's get to story number 2.
This happened during my first pregnancy. I was around 6 months in, and my doctor advised me to continue with life as normal since the exercise would be good for both my health and the baby. Therefore, I was still running errands and picking up groceries while my husband was at work. We lived in a medium-sized town, just big enough to have its own Target, and I was a regular customer there. I don't particularly enjoy going. The crowds and the bright fluorescent lights are irritating to me, but the prices are great, and the convenience of being able to get everything in one stop makes it worthwhile. I drove there on a weekday afternoon. Thick clouds blocked out the midday sun. Although it looked like rain, I didn't notice a drop as I made my way into the mostly empty parking lot. I chose a spot near the front entrance. Since I was pregnant, I was allowed to use the handicap spots in the front of the lot. When I got out of my car, I noticed a man a few spots over. He was about medium height, with neat hair and a button-down shirt. He was standing next to a van with tinted windows and had a large box of what looked like a TV bought at the store. His right arm was in a cast, which would explain why he was able to park in one of the handicap spots. The man smiled at me, and I returned a polite nod. Not concerned by this interaction, I entered the store and did some shopping. I picked up groceries and some things for the baby. After about 20 or 30 minutes, I paid for my items and left the way I came in. When I stepped out of the store, I was surprised to see the man was still standing there next to his van. It had certainly been long enough that I would have expected him to move on.
Yeah, you would think, but he's probably a crazy old man and probably wanted to stalk somebody, which is really sickening. But I would think this lady needs to hurry up and put her stuff in the car, put the basket away, and go. Because I got a feeling that guy's probably planning on following her. I don't know. Let's just see what happens.
When I reached my car, I unlocked the door. That is when I heard a voice from behind me. "Excuse me, ma'am. I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but could you give me a hand with this box?" he said, holding up his injured arm. He was incredibly polite and soft-spoken. I couldn't help but trust him. "I just need a bit of help with this last box. It's hard with only one arm," he added. "Sure, I can help," I agreed. People are always impressed with how much empathy I have. I couldn't resist the opportunity to help someone in need. We walked to his van together, and when we got there, he told me to get inside the van, and he would pass the box to me. I know how this sounds, but like I said, his demeanor was very charming and polite, so it didn't strike me as odd.
Well, it should be, because he's probably planning on kidnapping you. He wanted you to get inside the van, so when you help him with the box, he'll probably close the door real quick and take off.
However, when I looked into the van, there was a stack of boxes, and I spotted a pair of eyes peeking at me from behind them. Someone was back there. At that moment, the whole thing made sense, and I ran back to my car as fast as I could. I looked at the man as I drove away. His pleasant smile turned into an angry scowl as he glared at me. When I got home, I told my husband about the day's events. Looking back, I see how naive I was to go with him. I remembered a documentary I'd seen about the serial killer, Ted Bundy, and how he used the exact same trick, right down to the broken arm. Predators often feign injury in order to gain sympathy from their targeted victims. We tend to feel more comfortable around those who we view as harmless, and a phony injury can be used to bypass our defenses. Needless to say, we reported this guy to the police, but I never found out if anything happened.
Probably not, because that guy was so angry he decided to get into his vehicle and go, because he figured that the cops would have been called anyway. But thank God you came to your senses when you saw that pair of eyes, because he probably had backup hiding behind the other boxes, just so that when you help him with the other box, the other person would grab her and hold her down, and they take off. And plus, she's pregnant too. If all that stress and from people trying to kidnap her, it would probably do some more harm to the baby. But thankfully, when she got out of there, they did not follow her, and she's now able to live her life peacefully. But I know she's more wiser to help out people who have supposed injuries.
It was a weekend in the summer a few years back. My cousins and I had decided to go on a short camping trip, just for a night or two. I'm a 25-year-old male, but I was 22 at the time. My two cousins, Ashley and Jennifer, are a couple years younger, and they're twin sisters. There was a lot of public land where we lived, so we didn't have to bother booking a campsite. The three of us were novices when it came to the outdoors. None of us had any of the equipment or knowledge to make it through the weekend, but in a way, that was part of the fun. We were planning to stop at a Target a few towns over to pick up the gear that we would need. Tents, food, and a stove were all on the list. This Target would be the last sign of civilization before we would be in the wilderness. We were dazzled by the large evergreen trees that dotted the roadside. The bright afternoon sun seemed promising, which was a relief because the weather report called for rain. "There it is," Ashley giggled as the Target appeared on the horizon. "Just one more stop," I added. We pulled into the parking lot and chose a spot near the entrance. The three of us walked into the store and split up so we could get everything we needed quickly. My job was to get a couple of tents, while Ashley would buy the food, and Jennifer would get something that we could use to play music without draining the car's battery. I would get a small tent for myself and a larger one for Ashley and Jennifer to share. The two of them were almost inseparable, and even at 17 years old, they still shared a bedroom. As I made my way down the aisles, I noticed a man that gave me a bad feeling. He was about 50 years old, with long gray hair and scruffy stubble on his face. He looked at me and smiled as we passed one another. I offered a forced smile in return, then continued on my way. The camping section was just past where I saw him. Not worried at this point, I continued and picked up a pair of tents. I caught up with Ashley, who had gotten everything we needed to eat for the next couple of days. "You ready to go?" she asked me. "I'm ready. Let's find Jennifer and we can get out of here," I said. I was excited to get the weekend started, so we just needed to find Jennifer. One more thing you should know is that Ashley and Jennifer are twins, but their personalities are quite different. Ashley is much more street smart and assertive than Jennifer, who can be quite the people pleaser. Some would say she's even naive. We walked the aisles for a few minutes, looking for the last member of our trio. When we came into the electronics section, I saw Jennifer, but she wasn't alone. She was talking to that man who I saw earlier. We were about 15 feet away, and I could hear their conversation. He asked her all kinds of questions related to our trip. Where we were going, what we were doing, who was going to be there. He even asked if any of us had a gun. To my horror, she answered all of them. Why would he want to know if we had a gun? Ashley quickly approached them and interrupted. "Hey, Jennifer, I think we have everything. We better get going." She could sense the concern on her sister's face, and in that moment, she realized what she did. The three of us walked to the car after paying for our items. We quickly discussed the situation before getting into the car. Jennifer and I wanted to continue with the plan because we thought it was unlikely that the man had any truly bad intentions. Ashley, on the other hand, took it more seriously. It was 2 against 1, so we continued. After about an hour on the road, the mood had lightened and we were excited to find a camping spot. Just then, Ashley jumped and said, "Do you see that?" "See what?" I replied. "Is that the guy from the Target?" she asked frantically. I looked back and saw a car behind us. The driver was the man who we saw at Target earlier. He was following us. We called off the camping trip right then and there. Instead, We checked into a cheap hotel in the area and actually had a pretty great weekend anyway. That guy seemed like bad news, and it's a good thing that Ashley noticed him when she did. We decided not to call the police because there's not really much we could report. There's no proof that he was following us, and it's not illegal to ask questions to a stranger. Either way, I feel that we avoided a really bad situation, and I'm thankful for how it turned out.
Okay, I am mad at the cousin that went to go talk to that dude. She should have known better. Like, if he was asking questions like, where are they going? Do they have a gun? You should come up with like fake answers to make them think, oh yeah, they're prepared. Nope. She had to be so daggum naive and spit out everything. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Shiny Gold Tails reaction like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.